needs to be. But so
Sebastian, I was on that select group,
yeah,
and I think within 24 hours I got an email saying, "I'm sorry, it's gone."
I know. It was kind of nice. But sorry for those folks that missed out. There's going to be more.
But they're getting it tonight.
What's that?
But they're getting to try it tonight.
Exactly. And we're sold out at the farm right now, but I was able to round up enough for this event. So I think that's it for my little spiel. If you have any questions.
Two questions.
Sure.
To purchase the cheese, it's directly through the farm?
No, you'll. We can sell direct from the farm, but you'll end up hopefully in the near future here seeing the cheese in local retail outlets, in retail shops across the country. Really, we formed a partnership with my buddies up at Jasper Hill. They've built this enormous aging facility, which makes cheese come out excellent. I mean, first the cheesemaker has to do an incredible job making the cheese, but the time period from when it's made to when it's actually sold, it's actually aged. That cheese you're eating is over 60 days old, you know, and a huge part of it is the conditions that it's aged in, how it's taken care of. And Jasper Hill has a service where they basically purchase the cheese from us when it's young. So I make cheese tomorrow, I'll bring it up there next week, and they'll move it into their cellars, care for it, and then move it into their distribution system, which is great, and it's all over the country. And we're not selling the cheese to them so that they can relabel it. It's going to be relabeled, but it's a co-branding effort, whereas if the cheese moves through the cellars at Jasper Hill, it'll show up and it'll say Von Trapp Farmstead from the cellars at Jasper Hill. So we retain, it's a partnership.
That's right.
And you also get the money up front.
That's right.
To help your cash
So
flow.
another huge hurdle for cheesemakers is I'm making the cheese today, but I have to sit on it for, you know, if it's a soft young cheese like that, 2 months. If it's a cheddar, it's probably 12 to 18 months. That's like, you know, this huge pile of inventory that you can't touch, and it's, well, hopefully it comes out good and you can sell it when it's ready. But if it doesn't, you know, it's just a huge investment, and it's a tough hurdle for cheesemakers to get over. And, you know, small-scale cheesemakers like ourselves, what we're trying to do is bring this value back to the farm, trying to keep the value on the farm instead of selling our milk, our fluid milk, to these bigger creameries where it gets pooled into a whole bunch of other, you know, farms milk, and it might get turned into yogurt at Stonyfield, or it might get sold to Booth Brothers, but the value just goes out the door. So what we're trying to do is retain that value on the farm and do the processing side, and then you know, so I guess I'm rambling a little, but this service at Jasper Hill, what they're doing is helping small guys like us, and that's how they started out too, basically afford these sort of startup costs, the things that make it really difficult to get into the cheesemaking business. But once you're there, it's a much more viable solution than selling your milk to a creamery that pays you less for the milk than it costs you to produce it, because that's backwards, and that's what's happening.
Interesting. Sebastian, I have two questions for you. What cattle do you have?
We have a bit of a mixed herd. We have primarily Jerseys, and actually since the, you know, cheese making endeavor has taken place, we've started introducing Ayrshires, crossing our Jerseys with Ayrshires, crossing our Jerseys with Normands, milking Shorthorns, Montbélier, these cows that are good cheese making cows. You go to France and you'll see these cows are being used to make great cheese. The bigger thing though than the breed to produce a great cheese, I would say, is the forage they're on. All our cows are grass-fed, and they're so they're grass-fed in the summer. In the winter, there's there's hay, and we feed dry hay, and that actually translates into better milk quality than silage. It's tricky. Silage, you have to produce really sweet, clean silage in order for the cow to produce good milk. Because that forage, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the term terroir, but anyone that isn't, the terroir is basically, you know, what makes our cheese unique. The terroir is where it comes from. It's, you know, the forage that our herd is eating, and you're going to taste it in the cheese.
Could you tell us about the cheeses that were served tonight?
So the first one, the Oma cheese, gets its name from my grandmother. Her name's Erica Von Trapp, but Oma is German, her grandmother. She's responsible for bringing the family to the farm back in 50 years ago, in 1959. And the cheese itself is a washed rind, soft cheese. So basically, it's been in the aging cellars. It's been painted with B. linen cultures, which is a bacteria that gives it that orange hue. And so it's the softer, more pungent cheese. And then the other one is a natural rind tome, which is sort of an up and coming one that we're working on. The cheese you tasted tonight is only a month old, and I can't legally sell it until it's 2 months old. So we have a bunch of those in the works, but they both have natural rinds. That one doesn't have a washed rind. Those are the bacteria is naturally occurring in the cellars where it's maturing. Tome style is sort of a broad term that refers to this kind of cheese from France, but it could be a totally different cheese. One tome could be totally different from the other. So, anyway, hope that answers your question.
That's good, thank you.
What does tome mean?
It's probably a region of France.
I lived in Annecy for a little while, and the tome comes from that area. And in the markets, they have many different kinds of tome according to how long they've been aged.
Yep.
And I always thought they were just from the area, but I seem to be seeing them now from lots of different places.
That's right, because that's where they originated from, and then they cover a wide range of that style cheese.
So is it a style of making the cheese?
It is. Yep. It's sort of a soft. It's called semi-soft to semi-firm. It's not a hard. It's not a pressed cheese. It's never a pressed cheese.
It's really ambitious.
So, but like I said, you'll see it one tome to the next. It could be very different.
It's entrepreneur.
Yeah, I had a question, Sebastian, about the inspiration of your cheeses. You were talking about spending some time in England and working at the different cheesemakers. And how did you come up with the recipes? And were you inspired by certain cheesemakers in England or in France? Or
Definitely. Inspired by. We're not replicating any cheese that I've ever seen. One thing I wanted to do was develop our own products, give it their own names, and so basically what we did was figure out the principles behind all cheese making and try and really get our heads around that, get a handle on that, and then giving yourself the tools to make all kinds of different cheeses. And the Oma style cheese is what sort of evolved. First of all, we're a startup business, and we wanted something. We didn't want to make it a cheddar that was going to take forever to age and mature. At the startup, we want something that's going to be ready for sale soon, right? So that fits the bill, and it's different, and it's we're trying to follow customer sort of feedback, and it seems to be something that people like.